Hi, everyone. How are you? Oh, wow, that's loud. My name's Tyson George Williams. I guess the cat's out of the bag. I was an employee at Crocs Footwear when we were a small little company based in Boulder, Colorado. But hi, I'm Tyson George Williams. Thank you so much. I'm humbled to be here on this stage. So, the team, thank you. This is me. I'm an entrepreneur, an investor, and a venture philanthropist. I am a descendant of explorers and academics from the fiery volcanic rocks in a small place in the north called Iceland. And I have a mother from Holland in the south in a place called the Netherlands. What's unique about both of these places is that we're a culture of figuring stuff out through failure and exploration. As we move on to that, being a half-bred from Iceland and the Netherlands, I've come to a conclusion that I seek knowledge, purpose, and justification in this complex thing that we've come to call life. What's special about being a first-generation American and having opportunity that people before me didn't have, my grandfather was granted citizenship following World War II, where he was stationed in Iceland, came to the United States with the intention of finding his way to California and stumbled upon this special place called Boulder, Colorado. I was born and raised there with the rest of my family and spent a great deal of time with this view on an airplane going elsewhere. My mother was a flight attendant with Continental from the time I was 0 and went through hand and fist to fight and keep her job to this day. So she's been there since 1978 through a number of transitions. I believe is the 30th oldest employee there that's flying in the skies. That gave my sister and I a phenomenal opportunity to go ahead and explore in a manner that few people do because we have a cost basis that allowed us to jump on an airplane and basically go anywhere else. This gave me immersive cultural experience that I think is fine, but led me in many directions to explore things. I build value in new ideas. I would like to think that I build value in new ideas. We do this through identification of structured markets that we can find efficiencies in. For instance, if you have something that doesn't work, you should act to change it. We'll go more into that when we get to the Croc example. These new ideas and the value creation and capture within them is based on tangible, demonstrable results. What are tangible, demonstrable results? Well, everybody knowing about Crocs is a good example, for instance. If you picture a lemon, as everybody has seen, lemon are a great piece of fruit. They're exciting, they're delicious, they're useful. They can cook a piece of fish if you need it to. But the lemon in itself, in form, has a cost basis that's significantly different than a lemon that you cut in half, squeeze into a jar, add some sugar, add some water. You sell lemonade for much more per unit than you do a simple lemon. This brings me to the concept of identifying people that are willing to go ahead and pull a dollar out of their pocket for your product or service. What's special about that is that when I was a young kid, I, instead of having a lemonade stand, had a vegetable cart. This family compound that we grew up in Boulder, Colorado, had these massive zucchinis. They were pretty much inedible, but it seemed like a great thing to sell. You know, go break my teeth off with the little red flyer wagon and walk up the street and try to get a few pennies in my piggy bank. I've got a good friend called Gene Gerkoff, who at the same time that I was growing up in Boulder, Colorado, was in New Jersey. He was very, very intelligent, kind of innovative. He had a joke stand, but what's special about this joke stand is he had 3 different jokes, and each one of those jokes had a different price point. You had a 25-cent for just kind of a giggler, and you have this hilarious joke, which is 50 cents, and then you get the knee slapper. And I'll tell you what, Gene Gerkoff, a special guy, because he could, pretty much all the jokes are knee slappers, but this was special because he would get $1 for this. This gets you into thinking about what a 13 or 14-year-old is doing sitting around trying to sell rubber shoes. It's fundamentally more difficult to earn $1 than it is to spend $1. It's an important life lesson that I earned at a young age working in the service industry at a place called the Greenbrier Inn. My mother and father and I and my little sister Gemma, who's 2 years younger than me, were sitting here for Mother's Day. I had spent most of my life setting the table at home, and I figured, well, why don't I go ahead and try to get a job? What was difficult about that is that unless you're 16 years old, you're not supposed to really work in the service industry. So our good friend Phil gave me an opportunity, started bussing tables and the rest. This got me thinking about innovating in a manner that was efficient, direct, concise. It also gave me a perspective of the difference of and importance of the role of socioeconomic disparity that goes on in the world. You need to go ahead and generate some sort of purpose in life to go ahead and give that back to everybody else that's around. Introduced to Crocs. I was 14 years old at the time. I was walking to go get a bowl of ham and bean soup and ran into these three gentlemen who were walking up the stairs. One of them, George Bodecker, the gentleman who told Domino's Pizza back in the 80s to count their pepperoni and weigh their cheese, and then started a sandwich company called Quiznos Sub Corporation, which baked your subs as opposed to selling a cold sub like their largest competitor, Subway, did at the time. Had on this fascinating light blue shoe with holes in it, looked a lot like that. What was special about this shoe is it's something that I'd never seen before. And as you get more and more into the Crocs story, you understand that Crocs was defined by a very structured market, a lot of luck, and a little bit of push-out success. The fact is that this was going to happen regardless of whether or not we directed that. At the time, you had a footwear industry that was structured. You had a footwear producer, a Nike, a K-Swiss. You had a middle maker, a Nordstrom's, a Foot Locker, who sold to the end user. The issue with that is that the majority of this $100 price point that Nike is asking for, they give half of their margin away to a Nordstrom's or a Foot Locker, and then they convey the rest of the cost to you at the consumer. So even though Nike shoes are $100, 3 times approximately as much as our $30 unit, the Beach model, the original shoe, we were able to go ahead and dissect this industry. We did this by placing kiosks strategically in front of each one of these places, which are substantially less expensive than building out 40,000 units to, for instance, deliver to Nordstrom's. What was special about this is that when you're selling a Croc, you're making about $28 a unit for your $30 shoe, as opposed to $50 a unit for your $100 shoe. What's nice about this is that most of the people who were buying Crocs at the time weren't buying one pair of shoes. They were buying multiple shoes because of the price point. Fast forward about 6 years later, we were able to go ahead and exit with the company, and we're still around with the shoes. Hopefully you guys are enjoying them. So what's significant about Crocs? Well, Crocs taught me that you can have products and services that don't pass the laugh test. Anybody in their conscious brain, when this was started, would come to our team, a 14-year-old trying to hawk shoes at swim meets and shoes, and say, you guys are crazy. Nobody in the world is going to buy a silly rubber shoe for $30 when your team would cost $80. Brings me to my next point. So why don't aliens eat clowns? Well, because clowns taste funny. Really, really silly, in approach, but very, very meaningful in terms of what it is that the experience at Crocs allowed me to transition from understanding that the message and the medium in which you convey that message supersedes any of the product or service that you can actually produce. The conveyance of meaning through narrative is important, it's real, and it's meaningful. We were not selling a patented closed-cell rubber shoe for $30. We were selling an association with a lifestyle, something that made you laugh. Crocs are fugly. Regardless of what you think of Crocs, you have a reaction when you interact with the product. And you can laugh all you want. Unfortunately, I'm not wearing the shoes, but we'll deal with that later. We went public in 2006. The company had gone from about 3 people in 2000 to approximately 700. We went public in February of 2006. I stayed on for about a year after that, and slowly, as I was the youngest guy there, basically was brought on. There were more and more corporate people brought on. I was slowly transitioned out of the company on my own will. We started a company called Lookout Investment Group based on the same ideals that we used at Crocs in terms of identifying defective markets and opportunities within those by cutting out a middleman, by doing something unique and innovative. Lookout Investment Group decided to go ahead and target this 18 to 35 demographic, which is a very unique and tough play to go ahead and do, but based on the fact that me and everybody else who I worked with were 18 to 35, it seemed like a great approach. We're now working on a physical space to reflect this kind of innovation. This is in Boulder, Colorado right now, where basically we're modeling after Tony Hsieh's Downtown project in Vegas and the Summit Series, Elliott's in Eden, Utah, a physical space to encompass this kind of innovation. How do you create collidable square footage that makes sense? How do you build something that's physical that fosters innovation, much like you have here in Providence, much like you have in Cambridge, Massachusetts, much like you have in Boulder, Colorado, much like you have in San Francisco? Boulder is a great example of a place that you can physically do that because there's existing infrastructure that can support that kind of physical environment. You have university, you have a highly educated population, you have controlled housing in terms of the size that the city can go ahead and do. Unlike Las Vegas, Boulder is very contained based on the height limit that we have within the community. From there, we've moved on to basically identifying what this new notion of Web 4.0 is. You've got the identification of search in Web 1.0, your Googles, then you have social, Facebook and the rest. You have kind of the death of the browser as this Web 3.0 notion and the invention of the app. We think that there's a next step that goes into that that basically allows you to tell a compelling digital narrative or a story that's both beautiful, functional, in form and function. Compelling stories drive the world to act. We wouldn't all be sitting here if that wasn't the case. The narrative web allows you to combine all of this content, functionality, services into an elegant experience that combines the best aspects of the mobile web in terms of applications and browsers that allow you to actually come through. What's special about this is that it allows you to go ahead and get to the pinnacle of what it is that you're trying to do. As I progression through those 4 projects, each of them kind of unique and a stepping stone past each other, it allows me to go ahead and add for some reflection on what it is that's important. I like to call it the nexus of functional. How do you explore this, and how do you go ahead and create and capture value in a manner that's sustainable, that's useful, and that's meaningful not just to an internal team, but to everybody involved? You explore value creation, substantial, meaningful interaction, and immersive cultural experiences. So why is that relevant? How do you go ahead and take this globalized environment, cook it down into something that's actually special? You fail, and you fail a lot. It took us 3 years to get any traction with the shoe company. What's really special about Crocs is that the shoe company was established based on the middle of America. They didn't start in New York and LA and kind of suck into the center where you have these popular kids in New York City in the East Village, like hush puppies, walking around, and all of a sudden they're on the runways in Paris. The project was so functional that the only issue we had was actually having people try on the shoes, because most people, when they saw Crocs, didn't even want to put them on their feet. We failed a lot. It took us 3 years. We got over it, and we were able to go ahead and redeem ourselves and have a successful exit. 2, travel as much as possible. I had a little bit of a jump start because my mother is absolutely incessant on dragging us anywhere that we can, whether that be a car or a train or an airplane. But try to go get everywhere. Get out of your zone and go ahead and function in a manner that makes sense. Adapt and overcome. Anyone in the service is familiar with this quote, but it has to do with the idea of being able to identify the positive nature of failure versus the ability to overcome it. It's okay to give things up. However, you should do it with purpose, and you should do it in a manner that allows you to go ahead and continue taking steps forward. I turned 30 in March. Reflecting on 30 is very strange because at my 29th birthday, I was all excited and kind of free-loving. And now, 8 months out of 30, you find this notion of your iconic 20s juxtaposed against the idea that the next big number that you're going to hit is 40. It's a very humbling experience because all of a sudden you actually have to wake up at 7 every day and shave and tuck in your shirt and all of this stuff. Scary, right? Reflecting on the past, I've had immense opportunity. Humility plays a great role in that, and the acceptance of actually being willing to try and fail has allowed a great deal of learning in any one of these cultural environments that I've been before describing. If you can identify meaningful steps in the future to go ahead and accommodate for those failures, oftentimes you're allowed to learn in a sense that allows us to do what we call pivoting in my line of work. If you have people, if you have purpose, if you have meaningful interaction and communication, you're able to go ahead and move forward. Capitalize today, get stuff done, function with purpose, now, tomorrow, and forever. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to listen. Appreciate it.